Hi guys, it's Steamy Leia
and Captain Phantasma,
and here we are with our second episode of Thoroughly Honest Thursday. Thank you guys so much for sending in your questions. We really appreciate it. Most of the questions we got this week were about Yoda, Ewoks, or cosplay.
Oh my.
But they do fit into the category of either cosplay or Star Wars questions, so we're just going to get started with the cosplay questions. Our first question is from No Romero, who asks, can you describe your first cosplay experience?
My first cosplay experience, I talked about it on the last video, not much, but it was at Calico Ghost Town, and I was an airship mechanic, and our whole family was doing it, but my costume, it was all great, except the helmet didn't fit at all.
It had no shape.
It was a cheap Dollar Tree plastic. The cogs and gears were flying off to where it was just hot glue.
Always sand your surfaces.
My mom and sister were getting all mad, saying, why'd you have to ruin this? Now it looks like a hot mess. I was like, it's not my fault this time.
There are downsides of budget cosplaying. But for me personally, my first cosplay experience was at Anime Expo. I was dressed as Inner Mocha from Rosario Vampire, which is an anime show. And I have to say that I was in love with this costume at the time. Looking back at it, it is just horrid. It is.
It's terrible.
The dress itself was a knockoff
fairy.
Yeah, it was like a sexy gothic fairy or something from a Halloween store. I think I got it on sale one year.
Fit right, like.
No, it didn't. It was tight and in some places, loose in the others, and none in the right places, by the way. So I had an ill-fitting dress to start, and my wig kept falling off my head because I didn't wear a wig cap. As well as my makeup was off, my shoes were uncomfortable because I didn't test run them before a convention, which you should always do. So it was a mess. I was a mess. But even though I heard my mom say, hey, you look ridiculous, this costume is awful. Yes, she did, I know. But I felt awesome, you know? And, yeah, that's really what it's all about. It's about being a geek and taking that geekdom to the next level through cosplay by jumping into this character's persona, wearing their skin around for a day, and being someone new. It's really a lot of fun. And even though it was a poor costume, it was a positive experience. Our next questions are a set of 3 from Kyle Million, who says, I photograph a lot of events and the like, and I have noticed that people, not just guys, get a little handsy with female cosplayers. It's either that, or the guys get so nervous and afraid that they don't even know whether or not they can put an arm around a cosplayer. So my question is, what would be your worst fears from an overly friendly fan?
Well, my worst fear is just a guy touching me from, like, below the belt, because I'm still in high school, so it's really kind of awkward and just uncomfortable.
Well, it's inappropriate, and if that ever happened, I'd have to kick their butt. And you don't want to see that in the headlines.
Teamwork!
Steamy Leia takes down pervert. I don't know if that'd be a good story.
No. I'd read it.
I think there'd be lots of people who would read it, but for me personally, my worst fear, of course, would be very similar, because who wouldn't be awkward with, or be uncomfortable with a stranger groping them? I'm sorry, I don't care if you're a cosplayer, some average Joe on the street, man or woman, that's just awkward. And it's very uncomfortable on a personal level. That said, I think it would also be uncomfortable for me as a character that is approved by Lucasfilm, because if I were to stand there and not say anything or not address it, and a child were to walk by during the photo and this sort of thing was going on, it would be showing that child that Princess Leia, this character that they recognize, that they may look up to, is okay with this sort of behavior. And that's not an okay message. So that would be my biggest fear, would be not only something like this happening and making me uncomfortable personally, but also being impressed upon a younger fan. That would be the worst. Our last question from Kyle Million is, how do you like to be approached or asked to pose with a fan? Well, you know,
we've had a lot of respectful fans. Like,
it's true.
They always come up and ask, you know, before, you know.
Yeah.
We don't really mind if you know, hug us around the arm or the waist.
Yeah, honestly, I don't have a problem with that either. I'm not going to speak for most cosplayers, but I know for us personally, putting an arm around us isn't that big of a deal. Even if you want, you know, Captain Phantasma on one arm and me on the other, as long as you don't have a jealous girlfriend or wife that's going to come beat me up, I really don't have any reservations about that. If you do have a specific request, just let us know. If I'm dressed as my slave Leia and you want to hold the chain, just ask. I've had many people who want to take that photo, and I think it's endearing. I think it's fun. The only thing that we can't do is I can't take my blaster and, like, shoot at you.
We can't hold your baby.
Yeah.
We can't.
Those are both Lucasfilm rules. The blaster one has to do with Lucasfilm image. We don't want to be shown as violent. As for holding children, it's a liability thing. As much as I would love to hold your adorable child, I can't. I can stand next to you as you hold said child and we can take a photo, or I can get down at the child's level if the child can stand. But that's just about it. But I will say that, yes, I have noticed that more guys are not only asking, hey, can I have a photo, but hey, is it okay if I do this, if I put my hand around you? And honestly, thank you for the courtesy, but it's not necessarily required. If you just ask us for the photo, a simple gesture like that is fine. The next cosplay question is from Sean Smart, who asks, what is the most embarrassing request you've had from a fan?
I've never had an embarrassing request. I've had all nice people.
Well, you're lucky. I'm sure you'll have one story to tell sometime, and then you're going to be like, oh, darn, if I had just said that on the video. For me personally, there's two scenarios that were pretty embarrassing. One was I was dressed as Slave Leia prior to ever being part of Star Wars Steampunk Universe. All us girls have done it. You go dress as Slave Leia at least once. So I went dressed, and a guy came up to me and said, hey, I want a picture where I scoop you up and take a picture of you in a heroic fashion. This was really embarrassing because, you know, I was worried I was too heavy for this young man and that I would end up hurting him, or worse, I would end up getting dropped and hurting him. So even though I obliged with that request, I don't know where this photo has ended up, but I'm sure we both had very awkward, uncomfortable looks on our faces because it was a weird photo. So sorry to the fan who took that photo. I'm sure my face looks really weird. Sorry. But the other one is when I occasionally get requests either from a videographer or someone with their iPhone, just personal photographer, asking me to flip off the camera. This is really embarrassing to me because I think it's very disrespectful. And I think it's rude. I don't necessarily think it's very ladylike. So on a personal level, I don't have problems with other cosplayers that want to do that. But as a part of Lucasfilm and Disney Image, I also have to be very careful with things like that. Because I don't know where that photo is going. I don't know where that video is going. And I don't want somewhere, someday, a child to be on the internet or someone who knew me when they were a child and see me flipping off the camera. So please don't ask for that. It's really embarrassing and I will decline it. So moving right next to that question and into our Star Wars questions is another question from Sean Smart, who asks, what is your most enjoyable moment of episode 4, 5, and 6?
My favorite part is in Return of the Jedi, episode 6, when I love, sorry, I can't remember the name of it, but I love the scene when they kill Jabba the Hutt.
Oh, on the sail barge.
Yeah, the sail barge part's so cool. I'd watch the movie just over and over again just to see that part.
I mean, the ship is so intricate and visual, and then you have R2 with the little drink counters, and he's going around.
Love it. The
C-3PO.
line in Han Solo. Don't worry, I can see a lot better now.
Han is so great. Well, you know, my favorite is tied between a moment in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. In Empire Strikes Back, I really love the scene on Hoth when you see the X-Wing come around the legs of the AT-AT and wrap it in a cable and trip the AT, and it just goes down, plows into the sand on snow on Hoth. Because I think the Jedi in all of us wants to relate to the Rebel Alliance, and you know, just sits there and sees that and goes, yes!
I don't know, I felt bad for that. It was so cute.
Okay, well, I said the Jedi in all of us. Some of us aren't Jedi, apparently. But my next favorite is in Return of the Jedi, and it's a Han Solo moment. I really love that moment when they're on the forest moon of Endor, they're at the Rebel base, and they're going to open the doors because the troopers are coming in and they're going to attack them. And Han Solo turns to the control panel. He goes and he realizes that he didn't open the door, he just put more shield doors on top of that. Mm-hmm. And the look on his face of, well, that didn't work, you know, is so perfect. I just love that moment when you see this really BA scoundrel hero character, and he's got the, well, I goofed face. It's a classic human Han moment that I think we all relate to. And our next question comes from Jason. I'm sorry, I'm going to say your last name wrong. Calagian? So hard to say. I'm sorry, Jason. But he says, despite their cuteness, I generally despise Ewoks. His question is, do you think that the Endor scene in Return of the Jedi would have been greatly improved if instead of Ewoks, the Rebel commanders ran into the escaped Wookiee slaves?
I think that would have been great. Yeah, it'd be cool, but I just feel
Wookiees
like...
are cool.
Yeah, I just feel like Chewbacca would get really lost, though, in that whole battle. And you won't be able to tell them apart, and that's my problem.
It's true. I think we would have lost a lot of great Chewie action moments if we had been surrounded by so many other Wookiees. Just because kind of like even when you're watching the scene and you see all of the Ewoks, they all kind of run together. I mean, you might kind of recognize Wicket, but the rest of them just all kind of blend together. For me too, I also have to say that I would have loved to see Wookiees on Endor as escaped slaves of Kashyyyk. I think that would have been awesome. But we also have to consider the production costs. And we have to consider it from a business point of view, which, with the movie-making industry, is how you kind of have to look at it. One was, Ewoks are cuter, and they can sell things.
Yeah. Make more toys and products.
TV shows for kids. You know, it makes sense why they chose that. And also, even though it looks a little mismatched with, you know, these cute little space bears being killers, it isn't the first time that we've seen this in the films where some unseemingly, you know, dangerous character ends up being the killer. I mean, when you watch Pet Sematary, you see this cute little blonde kid, and you're like, oh, he's so cute, and then you're like, ah, I take it back.
And Gremlins.
And Gremlins, yeah, you know, there's cute little things. But, that said, going back to the production part of it is, when you're designing costumes and they're furry characters, you have to consider the cost of those materials. And I will tell you, as a seamstress, faux fur, even that really cheap, awful-looking stuff that looks like something from the Muppets, is fairly expensive, especially if you're buying them in large amounts. It's expensive material. So if you're building costumes for a smaller model, whether it's a child or a shorter actor that George Lucas commonly employed, these costumes are not going to call for as much material. And so the costs are going to be lower. Because if you're costuming those same characters, but instead now they're Wookiees, now we're dealing with a creature that is no longer about 4 feet tall. We're dealing with creatures that are between 6 and 8 feet tall, which is a lot of faux fur. It just is. But I did a little research, actually, and it says that for The Force Awakens, the combined costume production cost for Chewie, R2, and C-3PO is $18 million. So even if we divide this 18 million evenly among these three characters, which I know it's not even, but just for the sake of argument, it would mean that a Hollywood Wookiee costume costs about $6 million to produce today. Meaning that in 1983, it would have cost around $2,500,000. Just to make that single Wookiee costume for Peter Mayhew and his measurements. So, in all, there were 32 Ewoks on the moon of Endor. So, if you replaced every single Ewok with a Wookiee, we're talking 32 Wookiees on a set. And at that price, even though I can't seem to find any research on what the Ewok costumes cost, just for the change to Wookiees, the 1983 overall Star Wars production cost would have risen by more than $79 million in 1983. So, that's a lot of money. So I can see why financially they decided to do the Ewoks, and as a business venture, it just makes a lot more sense. But yes, it would have been cool to see Wookiees. Our next question is from No Romero, yet again, and he says, what race or species is Yoda? Is he a gremlin? Is he a goblin? I don't even know if there's an answer for this question. Well, you know what?
That's a good question.
It is a good question because you're right.
Kind of looks like gremlins, like the ones after they're not cute anymore.
But there is no answer for this. Google it if you want, but we don't have any canon reference saying what race he belongs to. So even if you were to find some explanation, it would probably be in the old EU, and that's no longer considered canon. So until J.J. Abrams or one of our new movie producers comes up with a name for his race, we don't really know. All we do know about Yoda's race is that they are short, green humanoid carnivores who are strong in the Force as an entire species. So they are commonly Force users or Jedi. Our last question is from Rob Fossey, who asks, what is your theory on Luke in Episode 7?
I think he's going to be on the dark side.
Dark side? Really?
I do.
Why is that?
Well, we saw in the premiere, we saw him touching R2 with his robotic arm and the black cape. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's very similar to what Vader looks like.
That's true. I mean,
yeah.
I guess it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say, you know, apple doesn't fall far from the tree like father like son. But I don't know. Personally, I don't think that's going to be the case. It does still seem odd that he's not on the poster, and I know that fans are just raving about that.
I think it's pretty strange, and I think he should be on the poster.
I agree. But for me personally, and I know my explanation is probably the simplest explanation there is I think he's going to be the Obi-Wan figure that Alec Guinness played in the original movie. Because he is that same age, he's an older Jedi now, he's had all of that time to really master the skill, and, you know, I think that Finn is our new Jedi. I think he's our new Jedi in need of some training, and so I think that Mark Hamill's character is going to come in kind of as that mentor. Also, if any of you are curious as to what my theory on who Finn is, I think Finn's last name is Sloane. And if you've read any of the canon books that are now being put out, the character Captain Sloane comes up a lot. She's on the side of the Imperials, she's very good at what she does, very passionate at what she does. So it's not too far-fetched to assume that she would raise her son in the shadow of the Empire, and he would grow up to be a stormtrooper, and work his way up in the ranks. Like, that seems very logical to me, but it would also seem logical that that's why Finn maybe is not seeing the point of the Empire anymore, and he's realizing that he needs to stray away from his mother's plans or her views for his future. And I think that's where Mark Hamill's character comes in. I think that would be really cool.
Alright, so thanks for watching our question and answer video.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is.
thank you for watching our video. Our next 3 appearances are the Steam Maker Fest, that's December 5th, this Saturday.
Yep.
At the Del Mar Fairground, San Diego. Then the Force Awakens premiere, that's the 17th of December,
Yes.
7 p.m. at the Sinopolis Vista.
Yes.
And then the Big Bay Balloon Parade, that's the 30th of December at San Diego City Hall.
Yep.
We'll
So,
be there.
yeah, we most certainly will. Hopefully we'll see you at Steam Maker Fest this weekend. If not, be sure to send in your questions next week, and we'll see you for another Thoroughly Honest Thursday.
Bye.